If she dies, my son will have another woman, was the answer I received when I was trying to save a woman who came in labor with 2 grams of hemoglobin and a primary for first childbirth and swelling all over her body. So I advised them to refer her to a referral hospital in the city. They just refused. Instead, they carried her back home to the village. I was deeply saddened and helplessly watched her moving towards her death. Dear friends, yes, this was way back in 1990. After I walked out of the campus of my alma mater, St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, as a torchbearer of its motto, "He shall live because of me." That day, I decided to change the motto for me as "She shall live because of me." I would like to share with you today some of my life experiences regarding the health of the women in the rural areas of India. I'm sure my sharing will give you a glimpse of the reality of the rural area all over the world today. It was in 1990 I took over as a doctor in the hospital now called Our Lady of Graces Hospital, Sardana, which is in Meerut district in Uttar Pradesh, 100 kilometers from New Delhi and 25 kilometers from Meerut city. It has a male literacy rate of 71% and female literacy rate of 55%. Uttar Pradesh is a highly populous state, but it had maternal mortality rate of a shocking 444,000 live births way back in 2005. Now they've cut it down to the half. Sardana has got 128 villages around. With a population of 1 to 5,000. All the villages hardly had any health facilities. The health of the women was the last priority for the people. They would spend money on cattle rather than on the health of the women because they were the source of income for them. Tuberculosis, respiratory diseases, anemia, bleeding after childbirth, complicated childbirth, and malaria were the killer diseases then. Electricity was a very, very rare commodity. Well, many of you might have had candlelight dinners. We used to have delivering the babies in the candlelight. Over the time, change over to emergency lights or inverters, and now with the backup of generators, we have a very good spacious labor room. Few weeks after I took over the hospital, a lady was brought in a bullock cart with the complaint of not responding after a dead childbirth in the village by Dai. So I rushed her to an examination table in the hospital just to see that she was already dead. And this incident became very common, and it shook me to my core. I turned to the Lord. What am I going to do here? And He said, at that time, the hospital had only just 20 beds. It's a building of 20 beds with no other facilities, no doctors, no other person to help. I was not only the first doctor in the hospital as a residential doctor, I also was the first doctor in the congregation, so I had no one to look up for help. So I turned to the Lord and asked, what do you want me to do? I thought and reflected, and I was inspired to convert that building to a hospital. Then, after this lady's arrival, he inspired me to move to the village. I was inspired we should start from the village, not from the hospital. When we moved to the village, we saw abject poverty and ignorance. Newborn babies and mothers had to face many cultural unhealthy practices. A mother could not breastfeed the baby due to 2 reasons. Number 1, they believed that breast milk is unhealthy for the baby. Secondly, mother could not breastfeed the baby till husband's sister came and a ritual washing done on the breast of the mother. Then she could feed the baby. It would take 5 to 6 days. So till then, they fed the baby with tea and sugar syrup with the tender neem leaves in it, maybe for purification of the syrup. Brushing the teeth was one of the mortal sin. So we forced them to brush the teeth in the hospital. But once they go back home, the elderly forced them to stop it. It was told to them that if they brush the teeth all will fall off after childbirth. So they were not to brush the teeth. New clothes were never welcome for the newborn babies. If they didn't have at home, they borrowed it from neighbors. They believed that this baby, when it reaches home or after birth, even at home, after 6 days, they had a puja, that's Chatti puja. Till then, baby cannot wear new clothes. They also had some healthy practices of food given to the mothers. They used lots of ghee, sugar, dry nuts, and some medicinal ingredients, and it was given to the mother for 6 to 8 weeks, according to the financial status of the family. It also was given if the mother gave birth to a baby girl, she would receive little or no food. The whole family reacted to the mother if she gave birth to a female baby. Husbands were never to accompany his wife to the hospital. According to them, they are not supposed to face such situations. After a few years of educating, even now I am there last 29 years, even now we struggle to get the husband to the hospital. Sometimes mother-in-laws have become very rude, and I too become rude sometimes. I keep back the baby in the labor room, and I tell them until the father comes, I wouldn't give back the baby to them. So father will come somehow, maybe 3 or 4 or 6 hours later. A 35-year-old female was brought to the hospital with a complaint of bleeding of the childbirth of a live baby in the village by the eye. On examination, I found that she was profusely bleeding and her uterus was very much relaxed and her BP vitals were falling and hemoglobin was just 4 grams. So I, as usual, husband was busy in the field, husband was not with her. Her in-laws and neighbors carried her to the hospital. So I explained the risk to the in-laws of needing the blood and risk of her life, losing her life. So some of the male members rushed to the city to bring the blood. Meanwhile, we are trying to stop her bleeding. After 2 hours, so we could not control her bleeding. Her condition was becoming worsening. So I looked for husband who has not arrived, still in the hospital. So I took the phone number from the patient, called him up, made her talk to him, and forced him to come to the hospital immediately. But by the time he reached the hospital, she was unconscious. Never to talk to him again. These experiences to manage such situations, I thought I need more help and guidance. So I decided to go to the city, in a hospital, where there are gynecologists, surgeons, physician, and pediatrician to get more knowledge and teaching from them. And they taught me great lessons. I must share with you one. A hot summer day, a 19-year-old woman was brought in labor. Imagine 19 years, was for her first child. And on examination, I found that she was breech presentation. Breech means normally the delivery time the head comes out. But this patient had baby's buttocks coming. And usually it's difficult to deliver, and the loss of baby's death rate was very high in case of a breech delivery. So I advised the in-laws, as usual, husband was not with her, he was at home. I told her in-laws that this childbirth may be difficult, we may not get the baby, so better refer her to higher center, for which they refused. Her mother-in-law told me, doctor, she can have babies more again. Somehow deliver this baby and give it to us. They gave the consent for the death of the baby, and with the trembling hands, I went back to my room, read and read again the steps of breech delivery. And when first time, I tried to deliver her. So I could easily deliver her buttocks, legs, and hands, but the head got stuck up. That's what usually happens in the breech delivery. And I was struggling to deliver out the baby's head, and I could feel the baby's heart very fast on my palm, because my hand is below on the baby's chest, deliver out the head. I could feel very fast, my heart also was beating very fast. I was struggling to take out the baby's head. And the struggle for baby and the doctor, I took out the baby's head, but the baby was dead. I was very sad. Though they had given me the consent for the baby's death, I had not given the consent. I just could not accept that death of the baby, which happened first time in my life. I was very sad. Went to the room and bitterly cried. And that day I decided I wouldn't take up any more breech presentation or breech cases, and will never admit such patients in the hospital. Next day, I went to the hospital which I was going. My senior gynecologist saw my sadness on the face and inquired about it. Reluctantly, I disclosed to her, hoping for her some compassion or understanding for me. Against all my expectations, she yelled at me, shouted at me literally, "Doctor, what the hell do you think of yourself?" She asked me. "Are you a god?" I said, "No, ma'am." "Did you kill the baby intentionally?" I said, "No, ma'am." Then, don't ever think that doctors are gods. They all are human beings with their limitations. We try our best to save lives. And these experiences are part and parcel of doctor's life. So, wipe your tears and be strong. That day, I decided, given permission to me to take a specialization, I would do OBG and become a gynecologist to save more women and children. As the days went ahead, we could put up a lab and a pharmacy in the hospital. And also we got a new old ambulance in the hospital. So we could go to villages in the ambulance. And after my specialization, I came back to the same hospital in 2005. Found the hospital in the same condition. The lab and pharmacy both were functional, but no other facilities, no operation theater, no ultrasound, no other diagnostic facilities. So I had to shift all the patients who required surgical intervention to the St. Luke's Hospital, which was in Meerut. With the help of doctors, I could operate them there. One night, a woman with third childbirth was brought to the hospital in labor, full term in labor. She had 2 previous C-sections. This was third pregnancy. Whole day they were trying to deliver normally in the village. So middle of the night they carried her to the hospital. So as usual, I examined her. I was scared she would rupture uterus before we reached the hospital in Meerut. It is 25 kilometers we had to travel. So immediately called the driver and tried to shift her in an ambulance. When we covered after 20 kilometers or so, she was howling in pain, uterus was contracting. I was holding on to the Lord. Please, nothing should happen, save the baby and mother. And the ambulance breaks down on the road, middle of the night. So driver gets out and opens the bonnets and trying to fix up the vehicle. Meanwhile, the patrolling cops comes, hearing her. A woman is shouting in the ambulance. I'm standing in the middle of the road. They came to ask any help. They helped the driver to get it down faster. And we rushed her to the hospital. And we reached doctors and nurses as we were informed when we started my hospital. They were waiting there. So we rushed her to the operation theater. When we opened the abdomen, we just could see the scar was rupturing, the membrane was bulging. So we could take out the baby, live baby, and repair the uterus and send her back home, both mother and baby healthy. As the days went on, the number of complicated cases like tubal pregnancies, placenta previa bleeding, abnormal presentation, rupture uteruses, and missed abortion, threatened abortions, cases was coming up. But there was no way to diagnose. Ultrasounds were not available in Sarvana. We had to go to Meerut, do ultrasound, come back, then manage. So that I decided I would go for ultrasound training to do the ultrasound in our own hospital. So after 10 years, we managed to install an ultrasound machine in our hospital, start an operation theater. खुदा के पास देर है, अंधेर नहीं है. My next mission was to fight against abortions. It was a time in Meerut, ultrasounds became very common, number of ultrasound centers increased, and also the sex determination and female feticide was in high rate. People went mad with the idea of sex determination abortion, sex determination abortion. People were told that up to 3 months is only a pool of blood, so they could clean it easily. Many mothers shared their painful experiences. Many of them told me, "Dil mein patthar rakh ke hum abortion ke liye jaate hain," meaning, with a heavy heart, we go to the abortionist because of the force from the family. Many of them had no voice in the family against abortion. I would like to share with you one painful incident. A 35-year-old lady was coming to me for a few months with vague complaints of headaches, backaches, lower limb pain, like that. So I was treating her symptomatically. But then I realized she had something more than deeper than that, something that is troubling her. So one day I spent time with her. Only she disclosed that time the painful story which might make the even stone to cry. The story is like this. Her husband and she had 2 children. He was a businessman. He was in and out of family. He wanted only 2 children. So when she conceived 3rd time, she did not disclose to her husband for fear of forcing her abortion. When she was 7 months pregnant, she revealed that to him, hoping that he would not force her for abortion. But against her expectation, he beat her up, dragged her at a quack, and forcefully aborted the fetus, forcefully made her to deliver the baby. So this woman was watching the quack delivering the baby. She could hear the baby's cry, and the woman with the quack held the baby by feet and dipped the baby in a bucket of water and killed the baby. The mother was very sad. She cried and knelt. He was very angry with her husband, very angry with the quack there, the woman who put the baby in the bucket of water. She could hear the baby's cry even after 5-6 years. That was troubling her mind. She could never forgive her husband for that deed. So, after her narration, she cried, she wept and wept and wept with me. She felt very much relieved. Friends, sometimes just listening can bring a lot of healing. Now, fast forward 2019. Now our hospital has nearly 35 beds, few private rooms, 2-3 AC rooms. We've got very good spacious labor room with the 2 beds, and also an operation theater. And also we have ITU with the 4 beds and 4 monitors, and NICU, 2 phototherapy units, 2 bombers, and 1 CPAP unit. And also we have good ultrasound machine, and a cardiotocograph, and good clinical pathology lab, and a very good pharmacy. And we also got very good nursing staff in the hospital now. Sardana has improved, but we have only 1 residential doctor who is finishing his bond this month, and myself, with a few visiting doctors as a physician, pediatrician, and anesthetist. We are still struggling for lack of doctors. Number of schools have increased in Sardana. Number of patients who is coming for antenatal checkups and hospital deliveries have increased. Husbands accompanying the wives have increased. And today, those who come to a hospital for delivery, they know that baby will be only handed over to the father, provided he brings new clothes and a toothbrush for his wife, at least in the hospital. We need to wake up to these issues all around. A women's health care should start as early as her childhood. Education is the only tool which can solve these problems. Educate every girl child about her future, her future pregnancy-related problems, and warning signs so that she can seek timely help. Educate every boy in the village to take care of his wife and children, above all, to respect girl child and women in the society. Encourage every medical student and junior doctors to have an exposure program in the rural areas and involve them in the healthcare services. And always, always listen to any woman who comes to you in pain. And then she shall live because of you. Today, India has reached Mars through Mangalyaan. And we have reached Moon through Chandrayaan 2. And today, we in the rural areas are waiting for Ruralyaan to reach with a package of health for the women in India. Thank you for your patient listening.